Good afternoon. Hey, it's Lyndall with Marshfield Old School Times again. We're here today on a pretty nice Saturday afternoon. Had some great weather the last few days. It's great to see that and see the ice and the snow and the cold weather move on. Today I've got a good friend and as our guest today, presiding commissioner of Webster County, Paul Ipock. Paul, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out and sharing a little bit of your story with us. You know, everybody has a story, and you're a pretty good storyteller. I've heard a few of them. Now, some of them you can't tell,
Okay.
but you'll probably know the ones you can.
Right.
And so we're going to have a good time today. We spent a couple of years together in the courthouse, and those are certainly great memories that we had in those days. So, but I want to thank Logan for being here as our producer and technician again today. Logan, thanks. And of course, we always like to thank Dennis Beck for our theme song that opens the show. We appreciate that. So we'll just move right on into Paul. When did you come to America?
I came to America. Actually, I was born in Illinois.
Oh, okay, okay.
My parents had always grew up in Webster County.
Mhm.
Hard times hit in the late 40s, and so Dad moved to Illinois, worked at Caterpillar. I was born in June of '54, and December '57 we moved back to Missouri.
Back to Missouri?
Yeah,
Which town was it in Illinois?
Peoria.
Peoria.
Uh-huh.
Caterpillar was a big
Caterpillar.
deal up there, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. The war was over, and they were making lots of bulldozers and a lot of activity around the
Yes,
nation.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, moved back here in '57. I went to the great school of Gentry.
Yeah, I've heard of the Gentry School. We want to hear a little more about that. Now, you have one sister.
I have one sister,
Was
Linda.
she here yet? Or,
Yeah,
oh,
Linda's
she was.
old.
Oh, that's what I thought. Yeah.
She wouldn't appreciate me telling that. 6 years older than me.
Well, okay, we're not going to tell your age,
Okay.
so she won't have to worry about that. We might tell what year you graduated from Seymour High School, though.
Okay.
But so you've been in Webster County after that all your life.
Yes.
And in your married life as well.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So you guys moved back to Seymour, and now your folks were both raised in
Yes.
in Webster County,
Mhm.
right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And your mother what was her name?
Her name was Betty Drybread.
Betty Drybread.
Yes.
And that was a Seymour name
Yeah.
back in those days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Your granddad had a store.
Yeah. Yeah. Or that was a great granddad.
Great
And then my grandfather he is a large farmer.
farmer.
And yeah, and I don't know. He had about 400 acres, and
Yeah.
he was big for his time.
Where was his place?
At Pee Wee.
At Pee Wee.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell people where Pee Wee
Pee
is.
Wee is east of Seymour, about 3 miles. The highway came through and took the store out, but just a little settlement. The Mennonites are big there now.
It was on 60 at the time.
Yes.
Old
Uh-huh.
60. Then your dad's folks, where were they?
They were
he
north and east of Seymour.
north and east.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay.
Down Jericho, there's a Jericho store down there.
Jericho. How far was that from, say, Hazelwood or whatever, or be east of that?
Well, you go north to C on C
Yeah.
to AB,
Yeah, maybe.
and then back
Okay.
back in
Back
there.
that way. They
Uh-huh.
Owens
Close to-
Airport was back in there.
Yeah,
And
right.
okay.
past real close to the Wright County
Right.
line.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of Amish out in there right now
Yeah.
too.
Yes,
And so they you remember when they got married?
Mom and Dad,
Mm-hmm.
October 10th, '47.
47. Okay. And
And
they both go to Seymour School too?
yeah,
Okay.
Dad went to Flint Hollow and then Seymour.
Flint Hollow.
Yeah. Dad actually went to Seymour very little. He was kind of a rebel and didn't take orders, and
Yeah.
he quit his freshman year 3 times and then got married.
Well, a lot of the men back in those days before the war
Mhm.
did not go to high school.
Yeah.
They went to the 8th grade.
Mhm.
And my grandparents both, my grandfathers only went to the 8th
Mhm.
grade, you know. And that was just how it was in
Yeah.
those days. And after the war, things changed a little bit. I think people saw the world and guys saw the world and realized, you know, maybe there's more to life than just the farm
Yeah.
in Webster County, maybe. So you got back to southern Webster County, and where did you guys move to then?
They're at Diggins,
Uh-huh.
about 2 miles north of Diggins.
Uh-huh.
Still on the farm.
That's the farm you live
Yeah.
on now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that was your mom, that's where you were
Yep.
raised. Okay.
Yep.
Um,
You were talking about my dad, maybe something I'd like to say.
Yeah.
They both died this past fall.
yes, they did. Yeah.
If he would have lived 3 more weeks, they'd been married 76 years.
76.
Yeah. He died the 13th of October, and October 10th would have been their anniversary.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So was he 90?
93. She was 92.
92, yeah.
45
Yes,
days
you
apart.
lost him for, I was going to say, just a month and a half apart. That's, well, we still send our condolences your way. And I know they were just a great Webster County couple, and he was very successful in many, many ways. Certainly in serving the Lord and in what he was able to do to provide for all the family, and just again a great man. Had a feed store for a while, and several years ago, and Tyndall Feeds in Webster County was associated with Frank Ipock. He was a representative, I know, for many years.
He was the largest dealer they had in all. There were 11 states, and he was the largest dealer.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
it really is. Traded a lot of tractors and equipment too, didn't he?
Yeah. I've been told he infested this whole country with Alice Chalmers tractors.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with orange.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with orange. So when you guys got back to the farm, what was it like growing up in Diggins on the farm in the, I guess you might say, the late 50s, early 60s?
Well, life was real simple. You went to church on Sunday and Sunday night, Wednesday night. The rest of the nights you would go visit people, play cards, or have music parties or something. As a boy, I had chores to do around home, and in the summertime, James River's right down there by me, and I like to go swim. And I was probably 8, 9 years old, and Dad said, "I don't care what you do the rest of the day," but he had a little old pickup bed. We would pull a tractor. He said, "I want that fiddle of thistles. When you get that full, you can go to the creek."
Really?
And it didn't matter what time I come home, but I had to fill it wagon before I left.
Used a Matic?
Yeah.
Wow. Was the James River, was it the Mason-Dixon line then? Was it Southern Webster County and everything north?
That's what was
Did you go to Marshfield much? What was it like?
I came. My dentist was over here.
Okay.
Dr. Melton.
Yeah.
And but that was, I didn't come very.
There was kind of a division, wasn't there, in Webster County?
And actually, I didn't go to Springfield either. I mean, we pretty much stayed in Seymour. One thing I would like to say about Marshfield, Dr. Bryce. I had rheumatic fever when I was in 7th grade, and I was very sick, and was going to Doc Gill in Seymour, and I just kept lingering and getting worse and worse, and then I'd get better for a day or two, then I'd go down. And get to thinking, Dr. Gill was in just a DO.
Yeah.
Dr. Bryce was a medical doctor.
Yeah.
So we came. Dad made an appointment with me to see him because thought maybe Doc Gill wasn't doing what he should have done. And Dr. Bryce checked me over, looked at my medicine, and he said, "I'd love to have your business, but Doc Gill's doing about all that can be done for this young man."
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
he's a great man, Dr. Bryce.
Yeah,
and Dr. McDonald as well. Both of them were. Dr. Bryce came in the night one time. I had mono. He came in the middle of the night and gave me a shot. I couldn't hardly breathe, and they don't do that anymore.
No,
but he sure did. And that was in the 80s actually. So you survived that fever. Now you missed some school over that. I remember you telling me you had a tutor.
From October until May.
Man, that's a long time.
And actually I had a teacher. Wanda Hance was wasn't even my teacher. She was a teacher in grade school.
Yeah.
And she went every day to our classes and got my homework. And I passed that year basically because Wanda Hance would bring my homework home and help me through my homework.
So you didn't get held back. She was able to allow you to. Yeah, and that was 7th grade. Now up until 7th grade, or at least through the first 6, tell us about Gentry.
But it's eight grades together.
8 grades. Okay.
We had strict teachers. They had to be. And the funny thing that whenever I went 3 years at Gentry and then went to Seymour.
Okay.
But when I went to Seymour School in the 4th grade, I was way ahead of my other class. I mean,
oh really?
It took them a long time to get caught up where what we had learned. They say those schools didn't teach. Well, they did.
Oh, back then.
But I think the main reason you either learned or you got beat. And so we
about how many maybe would have been in your class, say?
Maybe 8.
Maybe 8. And so in the whole building, you might have had.
There was 32.
32. Okay. And Gentry was right on the river there. What is that? The end? O Highway. What is that highway? That goes up through O, and then it turns into County Road. And that was the Hazelwood community, right?
Yes.
And so it's a good time to kind of talk a little bit about the first courthouse in Webster County. Was at Hazelwood.
Yes.
And it was pretty close to that schoolhouse, right?
Yeah, a couple of miles.
Because a couple miles. Is it still there, the Hazelwood school? Or the Gentry school?
Yes, yeah.
But the Hazelwood, was it a school too? Was there a school there too? Or just the courthouse?
Just the courthouse.
Yeah, okay. Well, now what's the red brick building over on C Highway? Or the house over there that was what?
That Mountaindale School.
Mountaindale School, okay. I get a little confused because it's all sort of the same area.
Yes.
And that, didn't they call that the Mountaindale Academy?
Yes.
Which meant it was higher grades.
Yes.
Kind of like fresh, the high school grades. And it's still there, and it's a home now.
It's a home. And Gentry's a home.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Jimmy Horn bought it. He's made a beautiful home out of it.
Okay. Cool. So then you went to Seymour and started high school, and tell us about going to high school in Seymour in those days.
It was things were a lot different then. I mean, the teachers we had dress code, like, I mean, boys couldn't let their sideburns be down below their ears. Their hair couldn't come down to the eyebrows. Mr. Blankenship was a principal at that time, high school principal, and he had a tape measure. And if girls came to school with dresses above 3 inches above their knee, he'd send them home.
Yeah.
And
they had that in Marshfield too.
Yeah. And but anyway, the teacher. It was a good time to be going to school.
And Mr. Blankenship, that's Floyd, right?
Yeah, Floyd
He's still alive.
Still alive.
Lives over there, and his wife Janice, and good Seymour people.
Yeah.
Then he went on and became superintendent.
And bullying is a big deal now. But back then, it was just an everyday occurrence. I mean, they fight every day, and it wasn't called bullying.
Well, if somebody come after you being a bully, you took care of it.
Yeah.
I mean, or whatever you
figured it out.
Stop. At the end of the day, it was dealt with. One or the other.
Yeah.
So Mr. Blankenship was your principal. Do you remember who the superintendent was then?
James Gibson.
Okay. And then later on, he became superintendent, and your principal was was it Barlow?
Wayne Barlow.
Wayne Barlow, yeah, because I've heard
you
guys talk about him.
Wayne was my shop teacher in school. Great man.
Yeah. FFA. That was you were big in FFA, weren't you?
Big in FFA.
Your dad was very big supporter of FFA.
Right. Well, we started the FFA. We started, me and a group of farmers started the FFA alumni in like 76, 77. And then in 79, Dad and I and Gerald Rudolph and Kevin started the FFA site.
And that thing is huge. It's
very
successful.
Strong.
Yeah.
It will be March 30th this year.
March 30th.
We've already got planned.
Yeah. And then didn't you or your dad kind of start getting Iowa started on one of those, or help them kind of line them out, or give them ideas and stuff?
Right. Allie started school at Iowa, and she told the ag teacher they talking about fundraisers. She said my grandpa helped start it. So we did, and actually the first year, Dad was later in years wasn't able to do much, but he built a portable building and donated to the school to get started.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
Yeah.
Tell me about your mom. What's your best memories of your mom growing up?
Whipping me every day.
No, really?
Mom was hardworking, and anything that my dad started, my mom helped. It didn't matter.
She was a partner.
Right in there.
Yeah.
She was a partner.
Pretty good cook, wasn't she?
Yeah, very good cook. Very good cook. Raised good calves.
Always had a dessert on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine too. Absolutely. You guys went to church there in town.
Diggins.
Yeah, Diggins Church. And then in high school, obviously you probably got a car when you turned 16, or
I did not.
You didn't?
Dad was adamant that I would graduate high school. And I had the money to buy one. I'd worked and I had the money to buy one. He said, if you get a car, you'll fail out of school. And so you'll drive my car until you get out of school, then you can buy one. And then he softened up and he said, when I started my senior year, he said, now, if you make it through your third quarter uh, and you're passing, I'll let you buy a car.
that last quarter, you
Yeah,
got to go.
yeah. And anyway, I had enough money to buy a good used car. And I said, well, Dad, what if I make the honor roll first three quarters? He said, we'll buy a new car.
Really?
Yeah. So,
did that
sure
give
enough.
you a good incentive?
Pardon?
That give you a
A
good
real good incentive.
I would say.
I aced out. Anyhow, in mid-February, third quarter wasn't over yet. But anyway, mid-February, I was uptown and I saw this little SS Nova in the showroom.
Oh, wow.
I told Dad the next morning, I said, if they've still got that car at the end of that's the car I'm buying. And he said, well, your grades are good enough. We'll just get that car today. And so
Wow.
we bought SS Nova. I had $1,850 in the bank, and the car cost $2,815. Yeah, and he helped you. He helped me out the rest. Awesome. But that car today.
Oh,
yeah,
50,000 or more, or maybe depending on the condition.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a great story. So did you start dating a little bit in high school?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did, and
I'm not going to ask. Robin's what I want to get to.
Okay,
so you can take. You can take.
I dated some. I dated some.
You can take that story where you.
I dated some with different girls, and then I met Robin in the fall of '71.
Okay.
And we dated for a while, and then we broke up for some reason.
Yeah, it happens.
And it happens, and then in September I started dating her again. We got married in June '73.
Okay.
And
that's right after you graduated.
Right. Yeah. I've been out a year.
You've been out a year.
Yeah. She graduated. She graduated in 73.
You were 72.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Then Shelby was born in 75, and April in 78, and Ross in 80.
75, 78. Okay. Three kids. When you guys got married, then what'd you do? Did Seymour have a drive-in, or what'd you do? Run a movie theater? I know you had a drive-in movie and Mr. Owen had the downtown movie.
Yeah, he had them both. In summertime, you went to the drive-in, and in the winter, you went to the theater.
Yeah.
And eating out at that time wasn't, little mom and pop hamburger joints. There wasn't no McDonald's back then.
Right. What was some of the ones you remember the best? Cafes.
I
drive-ins. Can't remember the names.
There was an Anchor Inn in Seymour that was good, and then the one right there, the bank owns the property now. I don't remember what the name of it was, but they had awesome hamburgers. Cheeseburger for 30 cents.
Yeah.
Milkshake for 30 cents.
The square was booming back then. I'm sure thriving. A lot of businesses on the square, just similar to Marshfield. Probably the population difference wasn't a great lot probably then.
I think the 1970 census for Seymour was about 1,200.
12, yeah. I think Marshfield was 19, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around 2,000 people in the 70s when I was in high school. So not a big difference. You guys never got a Walmart. You had some five and dimes, and you had, of course, later on Dollar Generals.
But now we almost had Walmart.
Did you?
Sam Walton's grandfather had a store in Diggins.
Yeah, tell that
his
story.
His first store was in Diggins.
Yeah.
And
that was his Grandpa Walton.
Grandpa Walton. And I believe in '87, Diggins was 100 years old, and Sam came to it, drove his old Ford pickup.
I remember that.
And
his
told that's where the Walmarts actually started.
And his grandfather and grandmother are buried in the Diggins Cemetery. Walton. I can't remember. Is his name Sam too? Now his dad was Thomas. I know. And after Thomas, let's see, they used to know all that. Thomas went to Oklahoma, and was a salesman.
Okay.
But Sam spent a lot of time with his grandparents. in the summers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Sam was a little boy. I don't know that he ever went to Diggins School or Seymour, but ended up, you know, going to Oklahoma, and that's where, of course, he was basically raised. Ended up in Columbia as well because he was a salesman. And then he married. His wife was from Oklahoma.
Okay.
Mrs. Walton was from. Her parents were. Robson was her maiden name, and her dad was in the bank down there, and maybe Broken Arrow or somewhere down in there.
Okay.
But we'll have another story, maybe another show, and talk more about that. But yeah, you're exactly right. That was the first Walton Five and Dime or whatever.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You and Robin got married. Where did you set up your shop? Where did you set up home?
Well, right on the old highway.
Okay.
In
the old house?
No, actually, bought a place up just half mile from the farm.
I see.
A little 60-acre place, and that's where we started. And then we worked for Dad. We had cows, but we worked for Dad.
He was milking.
Yes, milked.
You milked all during high school.
And then in '74, Dad and I kind of dissolved our partnership or whatever. I went to work at Tyndall's, Springfield.
Okay.
And Robin was just a housewife and raised a baby.
Yeah.
And
drove that every day from the farm.
Yeah. Then in '76, Dad had moved to town, bought a new house in town, and we moved down to the farm, started renting it, and we started milking in March of '76. And I worked at Tyndall's till June. I took a 2 weeks vacation. When I come back, the foreman said, "How was vacation?" And I said, "It was so good. I'm giving you 2 weeks to replace me. I'm quitting."
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then we milked from '76 until 2006.
06, okay. But then you moved to Marshfield for a while.
We
right?
moved. Yeah, we bought a farm. Dr. Harmon was a good friend of ours, and she was getting ready to move to Africa, and we bought her place
and that was kind of out in Belford.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Belford was James River run through the farm. We kept the dairy farm over there and hired help, lived in the old house, and I drove back and forth from Belford.
Mm-hmm.
And
how long did you live over here?
About 10 years.
Oh, really? 10? Okay.
And then in '98 we sold the place and moved back and built a new house.
Yeah.
And then we continued to milk until '06.
Okay. So '98, is that about the time you ran for commissioner then?
Yep.
Yeah.
A
lot going on there.
Had a lot going on. Yeah. And what made it worse, we had the place up for sale and some people from Colorado bought it, and they wanted possession the day of closing. And here I am trying to campaign and move, and it was a busy year.
I bet it was. And you got elected.
And
have been in it ever since.
Yeah.
That's how many years now?
26 years. I'm starting my 26th year. Yeah.
That's amazing. You're probably the longest termed commissioner, probably even out of all associate or presiding commissioners.
I think so.
I've looked through the blue books, the manuals, over the years, just looking and reading, and I don't know of any commissioners that have served that long. So you probably hold the title.
And and the county has grown tremendously.
Yeah.
I think in '90, around 20,000, something like that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think it was 19 something. I believe if you look at it.
It was around.
Uncle Don was.
Yes.
You replaced him.
Uh-huh.
He didn't decide not to run again, and there was 3 or 4 of you, I think, that ran, didn't you?
There was 10. I had 10 Republican opponents, and then John Bill as the Democrat.
John Bill, yeah. Okay.
Now you mentioned Don Roast, and I saw his name.
Yeah.
Don Roast. We had a dealing. We had the farm out here above Belford, and some people wanted to close the road.
Yeah.
And we're milking 180 cows. I ain't got time for nonsense. Anyway, he called and he said, "How do you feel about closing the road up and closing the bridge?" And I said, "Well, it's very important." And he said, "Well, there's a petition has been brought in to close it. And the petition has to have 12 signatures to get it signed." So I said, "What do I have to do to fight it?" "You got to get a petition." So I went to Don Cheever, and Don wrote up a little petition to fight their petition, and I had 150 signed signatures that were legal voters that lived in that precinct that wanted to keep it open, and we had a hearing.
This was the Belford Bridge.
Yes,
the one that we all used to go to in summer and swim and do other things. Some did, obviously.
Yeah, some did. Anyhow, the day they had the hearing, there was about 15 people there that were in favor of closing it, and I was the only one there actually to keep it open. And they started telling stories, and they got worse and worse and worse, and finally, I'm thinking, I'm beat. This is over. And one gentleman said, "Well, there's naked women laying on the beach down there, on the creek bank." And I said, "What kind of neighbor are you? A naked woman laying there, but you don't tell me." Well, anyhow, I went home and I told Robin, I said, "It's over. We're beat. They're going to close it." In about 30 minutes, Don Rose called. Well, he told us that we'll let the meeting. We'll take this consideration and let you know.
Yeah. You remember the other commissioners then? You remember?
I think John Haywood and Bill Cunningham.
Okay. Yeah.
And anyway, Don called, and the road will stay open. And I told Robin right then, I said, he's a great man, and if he ever retires, I'm gonna run for that office. I said, you need somebody that can read through the BS,
common sense,
and and have some backbone, and say this is our decision. And like I said, we're milking I thought, what in the world? But anyway, then Don, a year or so later, Don announced that he was going to retire.
Yeah.
And I ran, and
well,
still running.
That's a good story. I remember very clearly that of course Don was my uncle, and back in those days we would gather at my grandmother's and various they're just always getting together doing things, and I remember he mentioned something about you. That's the first time I really remember. I knew your dad in the feed business, but he said, "Well, there's a guy, Seymour, Paul Ipock. I think he'll be good. He's going to run, take my place." Because everybody's kind of asking, "Well, who should we vote for?"
Yeah.
And I remember that vividly. He thought you'd be a good one, and obviously you have been. So
I got a lot of respect for that man.
Yeah. Well, that's a cool story.
You asked me to go about who was the commissioners. Last night I didn't know what we were going to talk about today.
Sure.
But anyway, in the last we finished 25 years. I've worked with 4 different sheriffs.
Yeah.
3 different prosecutors.
Okay.
Full-time. Cynthia, when we were part-time, and then when it went full-time, Cynthia was the first.
Right. Mm-hmm.
3 circuit clerks, 3 different presiding judges, 3 assessors, 2 collectors, 11 different associate commissioners, and you being one of them.
Yeah.
And then 3 associate judges have retired since I've been here. 3 treasurers, 1 clerk.
Yeah, Stan.
And, and 2 surveyors, and and Dennis M. Singer. I loved him.
Amazing man.
Amazing man. I miss him every day.
I know it. When I was up there, he was just wonderful. We'd have a question, call him. He'd say, "I'll be up." He'd come up and sit there till we got our questions answered.
Yes.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. So Stan's got you beat a little on time, right?
We went at the same time.
Oh, you did? I was thinking he was a couple of days. Okay.
We went
on the same turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
We went at the same time. Yeah. Lois retired. Lois and Don retired. The first year we done budget. We knew there was John Haywood said, "Well, I know there's a formula somewhere, but I don't know what it is." And we worked till 10 o'clock about every night, the whole month. We finally got finished up.
Yeah. Boy, you didn't have any money, did you?
Didn't have any money. When we went in, our total budget was $3 to $4 million. Somewhere between 3 and 4 million. This past year, we've got $16 million.
16. See, it wasn't much more than that when I was with you. So I got elected in the fall of 2008. Well, guess what else happened in the fall of 2008? The economy crashed.
I remember.
John McCain stood at the Republican convention in September, or late August, said our economy is basically strong. And it was. And 3 weeks later, I think right around the 1st of October, those 3 big financial institutions went down.
Yeah.
And then the stock market went from 20,000 to 6,000 by the next spring, by April or May or something. And the Great Recession.
Yeah.
And so my 2 years was when the Great Recession was at its worst.
Yes.
In there with you. And we managed.
Yeah. Yes.
And we did a few things. I know the sheriff's department, we got, Roy got an extra car, got him a car or two. I mean, it was tough.
Yeah. Yes.
Got some radios and did some things that they needed, but it was hard.
Interesting in talking about law enforcement. C.E. Wells was sheriff when I went in.
Mm-hmm.
And C.E. Wells, at that time, 911 was under the sheriff's.
In the courthouse.
Yeah. And they were part of his budget.
Right.
But he had a total budget of $550,000.
Goodness gracious.
And didn't spend it all that year. I think he spent like 520 or 530.
With 911 and everything.
Yeah. And today, I don't know what 911 budget is, but the sheriff's budget, counting debt and all, is about $5 million.
About 5. Wow. So that 16 is including the sheriff.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're still at 11 million.
Yeah.
Well, see, we were 3 or 4, wasn't it, or maybe less than that.
I don't remember.
I don't know either. It seemed like it was around 5 total for all departments or something. But that's crazy. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's really grown. It's really grown.
What else you got on notes? You made some other notes about your time.
The things I'm most proud of. You talking about projects.
Yeah.
We built the Gorley Ford Bridge.
Oh yeah.
And
we started talking about that when I was in there, but we didn't have any money. But
didn't have the money.
We did
start and actually, right after it was finished, I went and got Don Roast.
Yeah.
And took him for a ride, seen some different roads we'd rebuilt, and then we wound up at the Gorley Ford.
Yeah.
And he got out and he looked it all over, and he said, "I wanted to do this when I was in office."
Yeah.
And the money wasn't there.
No.
The money wasn't there. And but anyway, then we built several low water crossings and bridges since I've been in. The jail was a huge, huge adventure.
Yeah. And we certainly moved on that. We did get an opportunity to start buying the land, and
right.
You guys had bought you had bought the block, the building that burned,
right,
where 5J Appliance had been at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Free store was in there, the thrift store. You had bought that piece,
right?
And you were talking to Cecil's Engine Service, because Billy had went and talked to Cecil,
right.
and then when I got in there, and then we were able to get that deal made. Mary Ruth's building, the Howard building,
and the old
bus station. That was pretty easy on that one. And then of course, the only one we didn't have when I left was Chip's, the Robertson building.
Right.
But he had made a commitment that when the time got right, he would do it.
And Chip, we bought it, and then he also had another piece right down north of it.
Yeah.
And then we bought the senior center.
I think we had the deals going on the senior center before I left, I think.
Okay.
And maybe part of Chip's, that north lot, or that lot there. I can't remember. It seemed like, anyway, it was all kind of fitting. And then Mrs. Gens's house, we had that deal when I was in there. We put that together.
Yeah.
And
I had 24 years was a long time. And I thought really, before my last term was over, I thought, I've been here long enough.
Yeah.
There's probably somebody younger come into a better job, and but I've always dreamed of having an overpass there at Diggins.
Yeah.
Over 8 and 60, and then a side road to get the Amish and the horse and the tractors and stuff off.
Absolutely has to happen.
There's 28,000 cars a day on that.
Yeah.
And you're putting horse and buggy. I drive down it a lot with my tractor.
Oh yeah.
And we did a study, I think maybe in 18, and I've kind of lost track of time. Maybe it's 19.
Yeah.
But we did a study of the old 60 corridor, and turned it in. CMT was the ones that done the study, and they said they'd probably next year before you'll hear anything. Within a month, they said, "You got a grant. You got a grant to build the overpass and to build a road from Fordland to Diggins. We really need one from Diggins to Seymour, but that's the biggest accomplishment." And when we got that grant, I said, "I'm going to cut that ribbon.
Yeah,
I want to be in and cut that ribbon."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if MoDOT doesn't drag their feet,
if you look at Webster County and in the last, 10 years. You could even almost squeeze that down to not quite 5 years, but 7 or 8 years. We got Marshfield's overpass. They're getting the Diggins overpass. Of course, the Rogersville overpass at Mill Street, the main one. That's in Webster County. That was done 10 years ago because they cut that ribbon right after I got elected. It was already in the works. But Mike Cunningham and Clemens were both there. But that, so, in 10 to 12 years, you're talking about major improvements.
Seymour is,
that's on the books.
and I think that's all because of our study.
Yeah.
I think Jefferson City said,
well, when you look at 60 Highway all the way, I mean, all the way to where James River hits 44 to Poplar Bluff, it's all the congestions in Webster County, every bit of it. And it's like, I mean, because they've even got green now taken care of with the one they built a few years ago, and now the one at 125, which is terrible. I mean, had to be done. So I think it was inevitable, and it's just I'm glad to see it now, where you can be a part of it, and everybody can get it done now.
And actually,
before there's any more matrix.
Our study showed, and there needs to be the second overpass. There needs one on the west side of Seymour as well as east.
Absolutely.
But the study shows that, but I don't know.
Now you can kind of feel though, like how Marshfield felt 50 years ago, or 60, when they didn't get the second one.
Right.
Really, I mean, you think about it. You're coming down a 4-lane, and you got to turn. You're coming past the square, past the town, to turn on the spur to come in, and you got to go backwards. And then to go back out the same way.
And then you're dealing with horse and buggies. Then you're dealing with horse and buggies.
Yeah. And a lot more traffic today than there was back in those days. So you definitely need that. And I hope you can get it. I hope it works out. But the outer road system is another big thing that's important. Getting all that especially by you having that railroad right there.
Yes.
You have to maneuver around that.
I don't know how many trains now, but there was a time when there were 60 trains a day went through Seymour. But I think maybe a little bit less, but they're bigger trains.
It got lower for many years, but then it's increased back up some, I think, in the last 10 years too, from what I understand with the railroads. Well, that's great, Paul. I mean, you guys have done a lot. And I'll say this just from a personal standpoint, you've paved a lot of roads. I mean, got a lot of roads in good shape. Even since I was in there with you, you've done a lot of work with getting overlays on roads that needed to be updated and repaved. And
the last 3 years,
you focused on that.
We focused on it. And one other thing that accomplished in my 10-year, which you were very much a part of, was getting the road more.
Yeah.
And
that was tough to do without any money, but it was the right thing to do. And it needed to happen. And I don't blame the commissioners ahead of us that put it on, but there was a reason to put it on, but it just had to happen, But you've always kind of been involved in the Association of Counties, like you've been an officer in the MAC or the county commissioners and all. Tell us a little bit about that, so the people kind of know what that's about.
It's County Commissioners Association of Missouri is the county commission of every county as a member of it. And you have trainings every year and classes. Then we have a board and an executive board, and I ran for the clerk or treasurer of it. I don't know, probably 10 years ago. And you work your way up through the staircase. And I was president of the state, and I still serve on the board. I'm still still part of the board. And why I'm still on this board today, we have different associations within the state, and ours is the Southwest Region. Cherry Warren was the president of the Southwest Region for many years. But when Cherry went off the board, the Southwest Region voted me in as president of it. And I've been part of that ever since. We have 2 meetings a year, informational meetings. It's supposed to be educational and Get a good lunch.
But part of it is, like you said, the state statute mandates that you
Right.
have to attend some training to keep up with the job you're in.
Yes.
And of course, it's a great way when you do like come to Jeff City, you can collaborate with the legislators, and they're very you know, instrumental in funding and things like that. And it's a good way to keep on top of those kind of things for sure. And then, like I said, your regional meetings, a lot of you have common problems, and you can share and bids, like find out the best place to get oil and asphalt this year, and you can share information and make things like that.
And that's not something else. When I was in office and when you were in there, we had no real bidding option for fuel.
Right.
We just had small tanks. A few years ago, we bought big tanks for the Marshfield and the Portland shop, and we bought semi fuel.
Right.
And we bid it every time we need a load of fuel. We bid it on a daily basis, and it's a huge savings to the county.
Bet. Now that's one thing we did when I was in there with you too, is we bought the Portland property, and that was a great asset.
Yes.
The old MoDOT station there in Portland, and the county just had a little place there at A and Diggins, and you're able to get that operation going. That was a good move.
Earlier we were talking about Robin and I, and the 3 kids.
Yeah.
But today we got 6 grandchildren.
Yeah.
2 great grandsons.
Oh wow.
One 2 years old. One was born the 20th of December.
Yeah. Awesome.
So and
now one of the daughters lives up north now, right?
Lives in South Dakota.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she moved up there a couple of years ago. Very happy up there.
Yeah. So each child had 2 kids.
Pardon?
Each of your children had 2 kids.
Yeah. April had a boy and a girl. Shelby had 2 boys, and Ross had 2 girls.
Yeah.
It's family. It's
good.
It's great.
It's good.
And we started 4 or 5 years ago having the grandkids come for a Super Bowl party. When I was a kid, my grandparents were old, and I went there because I had to.
Oh, they were probably a lot older than you are.
Yeah.
It seemed like it.
Anyhow, so anyway, I hadn't planned one. Well, Landy calls me the other day, and she said, "Are we going to have a party? Super Bowl?" You bet. And so I called them all, and I called Shelby's boys, her oldest boy, Clay, and he said, "Well, I'd had a couple opportunities, but I wanted to wait and see what you were going to do."
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, speaking of that, when I was a kid, earliest memories of a kid, in the mid 60s, I was 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. All 4 of my grandparents were in their 60s. They're my age now.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, something doesn't sound right here. They had to have been a lot older than I am now in comparison. But no, that's where we're at.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We're the next generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come June, I'll be 70, and
how
in the world did that happen?
I know, where to go.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to believe we served together 15 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years ago. That doesn't seem possible. But it has been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I hadn't thought up that way.
Yeah, 15 years. You were 55 and I was 48.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
Wow. What's the future hold, Paul? What do you see? Well, let's start with the county. What do you see in Webster County in the future now? We're still around the 5th fastest growing county in the state, and have been for what, 15, 20 years.
And I think we're the fastest 3rd class county.
Yeah, probably are.
I think so.
Population of Webster County around 20,000 when you came in office, and now it's 40 plus. Yeah, it's more than 40, I think, probably 42 or 3.
I think 42.
We're bigger than Polk. We're bigger than Laclede, and they both have 2 big towns, Bolivar and Lebanon. But when you look at a map, it's amazing, and of course, we haven't had that growth spurt like maybe Republic. Ozark and Nixa were first. Ozark, then Nixa, and then Republic, and Willard has. And now you're seeing Rogersville. All that housing. Marshfield really hasn't seen that yet, but isn't Seymour getting a bunch of houses?
Getting ready. There's a development just west of town.
Yeah,
162 houses.
That's what I read about that in the paper down there.
Yeah.
That's a big shot in the arm.
It's a big shot.
Yeah.
You bet.
And we're going to see it here. We're just a little bit.
But you're talking about next to Ozark. If you'll go back to 1980, the population of Christian County, we hit in 90. Actually, if you hit in 70, we hit it in 80. What they did in 80, we hit in 90.
Yeah.
And what they hit in, and we were staying right with them, only 10 years behind.
Right.
Then 2000 come along and they just boomed.
Yeah. Well, James River Freeway made a big difference.
Yes.
When Cox Hospital moved south, and a lot of businesses came from downtown Springfield and went south. There wasn't any that went north. There wasn't many then that went west. Now you're starting to see a little at Republic, but the predominant growth was south.
Right.
And that's when Nixon Ozark,
Mm-hmm.
really took off.
Yeah.
But
you was talking about the future of the county.
Mm-hmm.
We, and I am against taxes.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you that Webster County cannot continue to offer the services we offer today if somehow or another there's not another form of revenue coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I went in office, we bought road graders for $138,000. And we could run them 5 years, and we had a $100,000 guaranteed buyback. That grader today, we bought one of the $421,000. No buyback, no trade-in, no buyback, no trade-in, no nothing. We bought.
That's more than tripled.
Yes, dump trucks was about $60,000 when I went in,
Mm-hmm.
and in 2009 we bought 4 Freightliners, and we gave I think $82,000 for that.
That's when I was in there. Yeah, 09.
Today we've got 4 trucks coming next month, $200,000, and
Yeah.
the growth, everything's growing, but our revenue is not keeping up with inflation.
Inflation, yeah.
The wages.
Oh yeah.
With the wages is we've really trying to stay ahead of the scale on everybody's wages, and we're paying a decent wage to the workers now, but there again, revenues are growing, but not as fast as inflation.
Right. Yeah, and your services have to grow as your population grows. You don't have an option on that. Well, say what you want to. Politics get involved, and it really muddies the water, and it's a shame. But I've lived it. I've seen it. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And it happens in Jeff City, and it happens worse in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like the gas tax that was passed 2 or 3 years ago by the legislature, there's guys that take a beating because they supported that.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't even remember how much it was. It was pretty minor, a cent, 2 cents a year for 5 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody ever really notices it. And they even have a way to get a rebate, if you
Right.
get your receipts. But the impact that can have, like I think Missouri, because of that and the FRA money that's been out there since COVID, which is still money that comes from somewhere. They've replaced about 1,000 bridges across the state already, and they're still working on them. We've done 44 roast ready mixes, poured concrete on, I don't know, half a dozen bridges just in the last year since I've been out there. So it's got to happen. You have to do that, and those are the things you have to do.
Right.
So,
right.
and I'm a supporter of that. I mean, infrastructure has to happen. When you live in a city, you have to have sewer, you have to have water. You have to have police. You have to have sheriff's department. And there's just things you have to do. And so that's when you live in a civilized society, you have to do it.
I think our sheriff's department is second to none right now.
Oh, phenomenal. I mean, that judicial building was the best thing that ever happened. I mean, it had to happen. It did happen. You were a big part of making it happen, along with the sheriff and all the associate commissioners, and the taxpayers, the people.
Right.
The people made it happen.
Right.
But, they tried how many times to get that? I mean, 30 years ago.
Right. Well, I mean, I think we tried 3 times in mine.
In your era, yeah. Well, that's 26 years, Paul.
Yeah.
And you could go back probably another 20 before that.
I saw some old minutes not long ago. Gene Fraker went to the commission in 80.
He wanted that lot over there by where the Sheila's is. That
Mhm.
he thought they could build a jail there. You
Yeah.
know, and that was very conservative.
Yeah.
Just give me a jail.
But anyway, he said
Yeah.
the minute said Sheriff Fraker said that we've outgrown our facility. We've got to have a new jail.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to be a part of moving that forward during the time I was there, and I was glad. The location is fantastic. It's the best place you could have put it, right there where you can walk across and the courts and everything.
We kept the downtown look.
You did a great job. The whole thing was great, and you know me, I was an advocate of putting it downtown, not outside, and there was a reason that some wanted to do that, but it's all worked out great.
Mhm.
And from what I understand, the revenue's working out with your income and paying the bills, and you're able to farm a little bit of that out to the feds and so forth. So
well, we're not any feds. We don't have
no feds, but other
counties.
Yeah,
and we'd love to have some fed prisoners.
Yeah.
We don't yet, but we'd like to.
Did you build it big enough?
You can never build one big enough.
Hopefully, for a while.
But we did, when the architects built it, they did leave it where it could be added on real easy. Another pod can be put in just easy.
Yeah, that was good.
And then there's plans to, after that pod there's in, they move over another, I don't know, 80, 90 more beds.
Right.
Built over on the corner.
So probably getting the Seymour overpass or two of them, hopefully, and getting the Diggins project underway is some of the big things you've got coming up in the future.
Mhm.
How about for you and Robin? What do you see in the future for Paul and Robin? You gonna do a little more traveling? You gonna
We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we were married 50 years in June last year.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, 50 years, and she
didn't
didn't want to party.
I was getting ready to say I never heard about a wing ding.
She didn't want to party.
Yeah.
And of course I kind of wanted to have one. You know, she deserves it.
Yeah.
She deserves
Well, that I'll agree with.
But anyway, we went down to the kids' house. Shelby's got a place down at the lake, and she's wanted a camper for years. Well, this spring we bought a camper.
Yeah.
Didn't buy a new one. Bought it in 2016. Hadn't been used much.
Yeah.
That way, if we don't like it,
right.
You know, you're not taking a real beating on it. And we pulled it out Shelby's or close to Shelby's and spent the weekend and the kids were all there. And that was great.
Mm-hmm.
We planned on doing quite a bit of traveling last summer. And after we got the hay up, then Dad got sick and then Mom. And so the camper looks real nice sitting in my barn.
Yeah.
But we planned to use that month this year.
Yeah. Well, and you had a pretty tough time with COVID too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
A few years ago,
Yeah.
but you're doing great.
Doing
You
great.
look good. And
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I feel good.
That's
Still a little
good.
short of air, but
Well,
I'm not on oxygen anymore.
right.
And that's a
Yeah,
big deal.
that's a tough thing to come through. The whole country. It was a tough time. But,
Yeah.
Well, I think we've got 5 more minutes. So, what else you want to mention while you're on the air here? Anything else come to mind?
Well, we the financial, the state of the state of the county.
Yeah.
I did mention go. I can see how the future is going to be tight.
Yeah.
It was tight this year.
Yeah, but it's tightened back.
We owe no money.
Yeah.
The county owes. The only thing we owe for is the jail.
Right.
And we had half that money, $18 million bill project. We had half the money saved up, and
Did you have that much
yeah.
of it? That's awesome.
and
That's great.
so we owe on it. When we took office, we owed for the juvenile center.
Yeah.
And owed for some
Yeah.
machinery out at the road department. And right now, and when I went in, we had 10 road graders, and they were all wore out. 9 of them was wore out.
Yeah.
And had to have one for a spare. Anyhow, we have worked, just the revenues come up some, and anyhow, God bless the county. God has allowed us to do things and I mean, big part of that. But anyhow, right now we've got to cut down to 8 graders. They're all paid for. They're all under warranty, and that's.
Is there still people coming in wanting to pave some roads that have been paved? Is there good?
And
we had quite a few, when I was in there.
Yeah,
So
but the cost of the paving is one.
Oh, I know, it's all.
when we started doing the chip and sealing again in
Yeah.
5 or 6, it was like $1.80 a foot, and then it went up to $3 a foot. But right now it's about $12 a foot to chip and seal. But you can lay asphalt for $23
Yeah.
and get the company to do it.
Yeah.
Now, if you want your road paved in the county to do it, we can lay it for around $15, $50, $16 a running foot, which
Yeah.
you know.
It's a lot of money, but I mean, if
It's a lot of money.
the neighbors will go together,
About
they can get,
$100 a mile.
yeah.
Pay
Is that what
right
it
now.
is?
So we have done the chip and sealing, and
But if you owned a quarter of a mile of land, let's say, frontage, and your neighbor across the road, you could all go together, and you'd be looking at 25 divided by 2, about 12,000 for your part. Which, I mean, again, it's a little bit of a luxury, but it sure is nice if you can do it.
keeps cars a lot nicer.
Yeah, and long term, I guess it's much better for the county to not have to deal with those gravel roads.
Right. And one thing, a lot of people say, well, I'd pay to pay my road, but my taxes go up. Not true. Your property tax don't go up. Now,
are they afraid they're going to reassess their property or something?
The value of your property goes up.
Yeah.
But your assessed valuation doesn't.
Right. Yeah. I can see that. But I drive the county quite a bit, and I'm out north of Seymour quite a bit, and boy, there's sure a big difference in the Webster County roads and the Seymour roads. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm just saying the Webster County roads are all base rock, and many of the other ones are not.
Yeah.
They're still creek gravel, and there's a big difference. And you guys, again, my hat's off to you for getting all of those gravel roads base rock. It's just a much better system for the cars.
The year before I went in, Don Roast and the commissioners, and they did a study, and they paid, they did base rock on some, and they did creek gravel on, and they ran the numbers on it, and I don't remember, it was a minimal, whether, I'm thinking it was 5 cents a ton, but it might have been a quarter a ton difference between the total cost of putting the gravel on or the base rock.
Right.
And so that was one of the first decisions we made.
Right.
When I went in, we're not going to use creek gravel. We're going to base rock.
Yeah.
And
it was the right thing to do.
It was the right thing to do, and you're actually making good roads.
And for people that don't have 10-ply tires, that creek gravel, those creek gravel roads, I mean, it's an issue with 4-ply tires, and many people have that.
Yes.
One final question for me: we've talked a lot about Seymour and Diggins, and we all support that. It's great, it needs to happen. Anything on the Marshfield side that like? I know at one time you were kind of thinking about taking Commerce Drive on west. Is there anything on the table right now?
No.
Probably not. I mean, the Marshfield overpass was a big deal, and we got that done. But
and one thing on the road you were talking about, one of the property owners was very much in favor of it at the time, but if you remember, some of the commission was not.
Yeah.
Then that property owner has changed his mind.
I see.
And so that still needs to happen.
Yeah.
That still needs to happen.
Long term. But I know there is a long term plan that has some of those roads and so forth.
Now we are getting ready to build a couple of BRO bridges over on the north side. One's up here by the quarry, by Jim Lyle's quarry. That'll be built up and nice.
Maybe could accommodate a North Outer Road someday if you needed.
If we needed it, it'll be there.
Northview.
It'll be there.
That's good.
And then Cedar Bluff, out east of town.
Okay.
On Susanna Road, I believe it is.
Yeah, Niagara.
And it's a little narrow bridge, and you got a curve on each side of it. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, maybe 10 years ago, some guys were coming through at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, what they were doing, they were from Joplin. What they were doing up here at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they missed the curve, run off the bridge, turned the car over, and it was a lawsuit. But anyway,
against the county?
Yeah.
What did the county do wrong?
The county didn't do nothing.
You have to moving the bridge on them, or what?
We didn't have adequate signage, or we didn't have, didn't have guardrails on it. You remember the old bridge?
Oh, yeah.
But anyhow, I think the insurance company settled with them a real minor amount of money.
It's the world we live in.
But anyway, we've got the right of way secured on both, and and they're going to be BRO bridges, which, if you'll remember, BRO was a federal grant, more or less, to build,
Right.
and we've got to put up 25% of the money, and you got to build it to federal standards.
Yeah.
But it'll be a nice bridge.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Paul, the one thing that I'll mention too is, since you've been in there and I served with you, and I've known the commissioners since I left, and the ones that are in there now. I mean, you guys have been, in the old days, it was the North against the South. Mm-hmm. And when I mentioned that at the beginning of the podcast, I mean, there's a little truth to that.
Yeah.
Yes. It really was that way. But I'm proud to say that in the last 25 or 6 years, that's went away. And, we're one county. The one thing that I learned in there, you especially tried to make sure that all parts of the county got their fair share.
Yeah.
There wasn't any of this, Marshfield's going to get more than Seymour or whatever. Sure, we might have a project that costs more, but then now look, the other side will have a project.
Yes.
And you've been really good to do that. And I appreciate that. And I think probably that's one reason that, you've been reelected overwhelmingly. And
I think actually the Civil War, as you call it.
Yeah.
I think it actually ended in '98.
Yeah.
When I got elected.
Absolutely.
And I think one thing that helped that, we had lived on the north side for a while, and the kids, we got acquainted with people around here, and they, I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just communication. We're a smaller world today. I mean, we're not as territorial, I think, as they used to be in the old days.
And with that, I mean, we try to treat everybody honestly and fairly, and
you've collaborated with the towns well, Marshfield, Seymour, Rogersville. Everybody, seems to get along as far as I know. And so anyway, well, I really appreciate you coming in. It's been fun. We're 4 minutes over.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been fun, and more than likely, this is my last.
You think so?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you to the people who have elected me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you've done a great job. You wouldn't have been reelected if you hadn't. So. And thank you. Folks, we'll be back next week. We do have guests lined up for next week and the week after. But I'm hesitant to say who they are because something could happen with scheduling, and so. But just know we'll have some more interesting guests. And thank Paul for coming in.
Thank you.
Tell Robin hi.
All right. I'll do it.